Hey everybody, I wanted to do a video to help you do what's called the guided research paper activity in our Canvas course. So what we're doing in this video is basically we are going to go over the instructions real quick to the activity, and then we are going to try to go over this peer-reviewed research paper and show you how to answer the questions that I have asked you in the activity. All right, so let's get started here. I am sharing a screen with you right now. Let's see. Okay, so starting off, we have this guided research paper activity. So at the end of this activity, you should be able to look at a peer-reviewed journal article and find the hypothesis, find the rationale behind the hypothesis, find the methods used in the study, find the participants and the number of participants and the demographics and all that information about them. And you can find the results of the study and determine if the hypothesis was supported or rejected. Now, real quickly, what is a peer-reviewed journal article? A peer-reviewed journal article is an article that is published in a scientific journal. So what happens for this process to occur is that a researcher will go in and they will do their research. So they've been working for a long time. They've got some research project going on, and they write a paper on this research project. Well, what happens next is that they needed to submit this paper so that it can be published in a peer-reviewed journal article. What's going to happen then is the journal article that receives the publication is going to have it reviewed by other experts in the field. In other words, if I'm doing a paper on, if my research is on learning and memory, and I'm using a Morris water maze and I'm seeing how they act on amphetamine, okay? If that's what I'm doing, then I'm going to have experts in the field, well, not me, the journal that I submitted my research paper to is going to have people who are experts in using water maze and amphetamine and behavior, learning, memory. They're going to have people who specialize in those things that are going to review this paper and look at it. So let's say I submit my paper. I'm all excited. I think I've got everything in this paper that I need. And then all of a sudden I get a notice from the publisher, the journal, and they tell me, hey, you know, one of the reviewers decided that you need to make some edits here. You have to, you know, you needed to use more animals or do a different paradigm, or maybe you needed to include a different group in order to make sure that this is good, valid research. So then I'd have to go back to the drawing board, make those adjustments that the reviewers say I need to make after I've conducted that extra research or doing whatever it is I needed to do to correct the issue. I would resubmit the paper. Well, as soon as every one of the reviewers is satisfied, then the publication can go ahead and publish my journal article. So in other words, it's reviewed by peers that are peers of mine that are experts in the area of learning and memory and using a water maze and dealing with amphetamine. So that they would all be experts. And once they say, okay, this is a good paper, it's ready to go, then it can be published. So that's kind of the process that is taking place in a peer-reviewed paper. Sorry about that. I am trying to do this at home. I'm caring for my elderly parents. So my dad just kind of shuffled on by back. But anyway, we're just going to keep going because I got to get this done for you. My other computer died and it has all my videos on it. So we're just going to go with this. Okay, so that's what a peer-reviewed research paper is. So, but when this peer-reviewed journal article is published, you can pretty much have confidence in it being good, legitimate research. Once in a while, some weird thing happens, but, you know, I would say, you know, 98% of the time, it's all good to go. All right, so here's the actual assignment. The assignment is basically what you're gonna do is you're gonna watch this video, then you're going to, you know, get a paper and stuff, take some notes. I'm basically gonna walk you through a journal article, and I'm going to show you where you're going to find all the information you need to answer the 9 questions that we have on the assignment. So here's the 9 questions that we have. and I'm going to take you through where to find them all. A couple of these questions are going to be asking specifically about your opinion. When I'm asking your opinion, that's what I want. I just want your opinion. But if you say, hey, I think this is a stupid paper and I think I don't like it at all. Well, that's fine. You can say it's a stupid paper and you don't like it at all, but you need to tell me exactly why. Why do you think it's stupid and why don't you like it? And you need to give me some good, valid reasons for your opinion. Okay. So in other words, you give your opinion and then give support for why you feel that way. Okay. So that's what I'm looking for on those types of questions. I'm not going to read the questions all right now because we're going to look at each question individually as we look at the journal article. This is going to prepare you for writing your own paper later, because later you're going to have to do a review of one of these journal articles on your own for the class. So you'll be basically answering these 9 questions plus an additional question that you'll need to answer that talks about follow-ups, and if you see anything wrong with the study, if you feel like you need to do a different population, things like that. So we'll go over that later. I will probably make a second video for that because this one's already getting long. Okay, I'm going to change the screen share. For some reason, it wouldn't do the split screen and on the screen share, and I do not know why. So we're going to end this, stop the share. Sorry, I'm walking through this because I'm doing it on Zoom. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to do another. Oh boy, maybe I should have cleaned up a little. The blurred background makes it all weird. Okay, screen share. We're going to just look at the role of gratitude. All right. So the name of the article that we're going to be looking at for our practice here is called "The Role of Gratitude in." Hold on. There we go. The role of gratitude in spiritual well-being in asymptomatic heart failure patients. And I don't know if you can see my mouse here. I don't know if I can get a pointer. I don't know that much about this. Sure, I probably can, but I'm not going to bother with it. Hopefully you'll just see my pointer. Okay, so the first question that is being asked on your 9 questions is, what is the title of the article? So the title of the article is right here at the top of the page, "The Role of Gratitude in Spiritual Well-Being in Asymptomatic Heart Failure Patients." That's the whole answer to the question right there. It's the title. Okay. The next question, number 2, is asking you, who are the authors? Who are the authors of this paper? And right here, you can see a whole bunch of names. These guys are all from University of California, San Diego. This guy or girl, whoever, Alex, from University of Sterling. And this person here from, let's see, Chopra Center for Wellbeing at Carlsbad, California. That's from UC San Diego. So those are our authors. You don't have to put the school affiliation for them for this particular activity. You're just going to go ahead and put the names. So you would list the names of all of these authors to answer that question number 2. Now, number 3 can be a little more tricky. This number 3 says, in what journal was this article published? Provide the name of the journal, the title of the article, the year, the month, the volume number, and page numbers. Now, this is usually up here in this top corner, the top left-hand corner of the document. So right here, this is called, the journal is called Spirituality in Clinical Practices. So that's actually the name of the journal. The year is 2015. It is volume 2. It is number 1. And it's pages 5 through 17 for this particular journal article. So that's how you get your answer for number 3. Now, in each one of the articles that you have a choice to use for your paper that you're doing later, which is just answering questions on your own, the format of these are going to be just the same. Okay. So the next one is, what were the researchers interested in finding out? What what was their hypothesis? In other words, what did they predict they would find? Now, this can often be very tricky. So normally, you can find out their hypothesis in a couple of different places. Some researchers write, we hypothesize that, or our hypothesis is. Sometimes they put that in there. Other times they do not. Other times you just have to really read to try to find out what their hypothesis actually was. I think they should be straightforward, but that's just me. Now, what is happening here? Okay, so basically, what you need to do first, what I recommend when you go to read a research paper, and this is the part we're going to get into, is just how to read this journal article. The way you're going to do that is the first thing you're going to do is you're going to read what's called the abstract. Now, the abstract is this short summary of the research paper that is posted right here underneath these authors' names. Okay, the abstract is going to give you basically what they did in this paper all in one little paragraph. So here we have spirituality and gratitude are associated with well-being. Few, if any, studies have examined the role of gratitude in heart failure patients, or whether it is a mechanism through which spirituality may exert its beneficial effects on physical and mental health in this clinical population. This study examined associations between gratitude, spiritual well-being, sleep, mood, fatigue, cardiac-specific self-efficacy, and inflammation in 186 men and women with stage B asymptomatic heart failure, ages 65 or 66.5 years plus or minus 10 years. All right, in correlational analysis, gratitude was associated with better sleep, less depressed mood, less fatigue, and better self-efficacy to maintain cardiac function. Patients expressing more gratitude also had lower levels of inflammatory biomarkers. We further explored relationships among these variables by examining a putative pathway to determine whether spirituality exerts its beneficial effects through gratitude. We found that gratitude fully mediated the relationship between spiritual well-being and sleep quality. Right there, they're just saying that, the main factor here that determined these things was their attitude of gratitude, basically. And also the relationship between spiritual well-being and depressed mood. Gratitude also partially mediated the relationships between spiritual well-being and fatigue, between spiritual well-being and self-efficacy. In sum, we report that gratitude and spiritual well-being are related to better mood and better sleep, less fatigue, and more self-efficacy, and that gratitude fully or partially mediates the beneficial effects of spiritual well-being on these endpoints. Efforts to increase gratitude may be a treatment for improving well-being in heart failure patients' lives and be of potential clinical value. So I know that's a mouthful, and I know there's a whole lot of numbers and stuff in here. You probably haven't taken statistics class yet. You're not expected to understand the statistics or the statistical values or the complicated methods that are being used in the study. However, you should still be able to read parts of the study and get what they're talking about. So if you're not in a particular field, like, if I go to read a paper in a field that I'm not familiar with, and I look at their statistics and I look at their results section, it's going to be over my head. I'm not really going to understand it, but I can still know what the paper is talking about and know what it means if I know how to approach reading that article properly. So first thing you do, you're going to go through, read this, read the abstract. In the abstract, there may be things that you're not sure about. You're not really sure what it means. You might want to jot those down so you can kind of find them in the paper as you go. But here we have, they're telling us why they're doing it. Few, if any, studies have examined the role of gratitude in heart failure patients. Okay, so that's one of the reasons why they're doing it. this study, you know, it talks about examining inflammation and stuff like that. It talks about how many people were used. You know, the specific population that had heart failure were used. They did correlational analysis, and they had all these associations that they found. Let's see. They said that this gratitude mediated things, so we can find out what that means as we read through the paper. I'm not going to read the whole paper with you. I'm just going to show you how to find the answers to these things. It's a really good paper, though. It is posted on our course site, or the link to it, and you can get to it that way. These are just papers from the American Psychological Association's site. And these are free research articles that you can go to at American Psychological Association. All right, so that's our abstract. The first thing you want to do is you're going to read that abstract and see if you can kind of figure out what's happening in the paper. The next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to read the introduction. Okay, this is just stuff about the people. Okay, so where do we begin? So this paper actually begins right here on page 6 of this journal or whatever. So it starts with a quote: "Gratitude unlocks the fullness of life. It turns denial into acceptance, chaos into order, confusion into clarity. It turns problems into gifts, failures into successes, and mistakes into important events. Gratitude makes sense of our past, brings peace for today, and creates a vision for tomorrow." So obviously, you know, these researchers have a very positive outlook about gratitude. And there's a lot of there's not that much research yet to back up those attitudes, and that's what they're doing, is they're kind of getting that information. So in this particular in this section of the paper, it starts with the discussion. The discussion is going to tell you basically why they're doing the paper, and it's going to tell you all sorts of information or explain a lot of things about the research they're doing. So when you read the introduction, oftentimes it'll introduce some terms to you and explain the terms. And so that's one of the reasons you want to start reading with this. You know, it starts off: heart failure is a major public health concern affecting over 6 million Americans. It costs a bunch of money. You go through and you can just read this. You read this one, then you read down this one. Gratitude is considered a positive psychological factor that has been associated with well-being in some populations. So there's some research. According to Bushings et al. 2014, that's a researcher who did this research we're talking about right there. In clinical populations, feelings of gratitude and awe facilitate perceptions and cognitions that go beyond the focus of the illness and include positive aspects of one's personal and interpersonal reality, even in the face of disease. So there's a whole field called positive psychology, and I imagine they study a lot of gratitude as well. I'm not all that familiar with it, but there is a field for that. A lot of different good, cool stuff you can do with psychology. Okay, so they're talking about previous studies here, and then, you know, when we want to find out where the hypothesis is, like what are the predictions? What do these people predict? Do they think that they're going to find out? We can tell kind of by their statement that they started with that these people are believing that they're going to see a positive relationship between gratitude and increased well-being. So in other words, they feel like they're going to have, if people that have more gratitude are going to have better well-being. So you can tell by the feel of this that that's their hypothesis. Hopefully they're going to just tell us. Let's see. Here's some more stuff. Now, usually in this paragraph, right before the methods section, the methods section here is what's going to tell you how the research was done. So usually you find out the hypothesis right there. In most studies, it'll be in this paragraph before. It says, within the growing field of studying relationships between gratitude and well-being, few studies have examined heart failure populations. And this is despite recent studies describing the importance of psychosocial resources such as gratitude in alleviating the struggles associated with living with symptomatic heart failure. That was a tough one. Here we go. The purpose of this study. They're going to tell us the hypothesis basically now. The purpose of this study, therefore, was to examine associations between spiritual well-being, gratitude, and physical and mental health in stage B heart failure. Patients had to examine a potential pathway, i.e. gratitude, through which spiritual well-being may promote physical and mental health benefits. So they're not specifically telling you their prediction here. We're thinking, okay, we know their prediction from all of this stuff that's telling us that they believe that they're going to see a relationship that's positive. Since we're not 100% sure, they didn't really tell us exactly what their hypothesis is. Let's, here's our methods. Methods is going to tell us how they did it. Then some other protocol, then measures, talks about what they use to measure these things. These are other markers. And then statistical analysis, you don't worry about that until you take some stats. The results section, once again, you don't worry about the results section either, because the results section is showing you all the different results of the statistical analysis and stuff that was there. So where you're really going to see stuff is that when you're going to really find out what they got out of this study is you pop down here to the discussion. So in the discussion, usually in that first paragraph of the discussion, you will see whether a hypothesis was supported or not supported. Let's see if we do. I guess I should have read this paper before I did this. I mean, I'm familiar with the paper, but it's been a long time. But it's not always going to be straightforward. So let's see. In stage B asymptomatic heart failure patients, we found that gratitude was related to better mood and sleep, more efficacy, and lower fatigue and inflammation. Spiritual well-being was related to each of these as well, with the exception of inflammatory index. When examining these relationships in more depth, we found that gratitude fully mediated the beneficial effects of spiritual well-being on sleep and depressed mood, and partially mediated the relationship between spiritual well-being and fatigue, and spiritual well-being and cardiac-specific self-efficacy. And, you know, to find out what is cardiac-specific self-efficacy, we probably have to go back to the introduction of the paper, and it'll tell us what that is. Or in some part in that paper, it's going to tell us what they mean by that. Stage B patients, high risk for developing symptomatic stage C, blah, blah, blah. Interventions designed to increase gratitude do improve psychosocial well-being. So basically their hypothesis was that, you know, we can tell from the intro there that they were anticipating that if you increase, or people with higher attitudes of gratitude basically have better outcomes in these areas, have better well-being than people who don't. And their research supported that. So once again, it's kind of tough to find out specifically the, here's the summary. Okay, here we go. Sometimes they'll have multiple experiments within a paper. You might have 3 or 4 experiments. And then each one of those little experiments will have a discussion. And then at the end, they might have a summary. So this one has a summary. Let's see, it's talking, there's our discussion. Untangling these relationships, blah, blah, blah. Okay, there we go. Gratitude and spiritual well-being are key positive factors to consider in this population. We documented that an attitude of gratitude is related to better mood and sleep, less fatigue, and more self-efficacy, and a lower cellular inflammatory index. Because your mind and your body work together. Like when you have depression, say you have chronic pain and depression, when your depression is really bad, the pain is so much worse. You know, when you're in a lot of pain, you can have a lot of depression related to that pain. So your mind and body connection is really, really strong. All right, so it just kind of gives you a big summary here about improving health outcomes. Given that interventions to increase gratitude are relatively simple and of low cost, efforts to increase gratitude in heart failure patients' lives may be of potential clinical value and represent a treatment target for improving well-being. And of course, when we talk about well-being, we're talking about quality. So back to our questions here. Number 1, what was the title of the article? So we have our title of the article right here. Number 2, who are the authors? Right here. Number 3, up in the corner here is what journal is it published in? What were the researchers interested in finding out? So in this case, we know they were trying to find out if what kind of effects, if gratitude would increase the well-being of these heart failure patients, right? And it says, was their researchers' hypothesis? Let's see. What was the researchers' hypothesis? What did they predict they would find? You can usually find this in the last paragraph. Okay. So once again, we didn't find them specifically saying this is our hypothesis, but in this paper, we can assume their hypothesis by what they're saying everywhere else. We can get an idea of what their specific hypothesis was. Number 4. That was number 4. Number 5, what methods did they use to answer this research question? Use the methods section to answer this question. Sometimes this can be very confusing. And it says discuss it with the group. Oop, I got to take that out of there. This is supposed to be a group assignment. We usually do this as a group, and I put you guys in groups when we do face-to-face. I didn't have time to figure out how to do the groups on the online, which I will find out. But so you guys are on your own on this right now. Or you can just contact me. If you have problems with your paper, shoot me an email. We'll try to help you with this. Okay, so let's go down to the methods section. Methods. Okay, so the first thing we're seeing in the methods is the participants. It's talking about the participants. Depressive symptom severity. So symptoms of depression were assessed with the 21-item Beck Depression Inventory. That's a very popularly used scale to help determine if a person has depression, and if they are, how severe is it. A sleep quality index was also used. The PSQI. For fatigue, they used the multidimensional fatigue symptom inventory short form. Self-efficacy was, let's see, the cardiac self-efficacy questionnaire. And let's learn about this. Okay. Examines the role of patient self-efficacy for patients with coronary heart disease. It has 2 factors: control symptoms and maintain function, and has a high internal consistency. So basically, when we're talking about that term, we're talking about the person being able to do stuff on their own and control their symptoms. They had inflammatory markers implicated in the pathologies of HF and inflammation. Okay, so they used relevant panel of okay, so they just used, let's see. So they used some blood work, basically. They used some blood work to determine this. Statistical analysis. Circulating levels of these biomarkers were determined by commercial ELISA. It's an ELISA assay. It's just a laboratory process that you do to determine certain levels of stuff. This is whole blood was preserved with this, and following centrifugation, plasma was stored, blah, 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 all the details, but it's blood work, okay? Some analysis was done on, a specific analysis was done on the blood. Statistical analysis, I didn't ask you anything about that. You don't need to know about that. Results, you don't even need to know about that. It's sometimes fun to go ahead and look through these results sections. You might be able to gain a lot of information, and you might not, depending on the complexity and the specificity of the findings. Some areas use such jargon and lingo that if you're not directly part of that type of scientific community, that you will not know what they're talking about. So let's see, gratitude as a mediator of the relationship between spirituality and physical mental health. Let's see, mediation analysis were conducted to examine whether gratitude mediates the relationship between, okay, so this is just a statistical analysis that they had done on this. Okay. And anyway, so back to our questions. The next one, yeah, we already did what methods, okay. Describe the participants. So let's go back up to the beginning of the methods section that has participants. So we had 186 men and women. It doesn't, usually they break down and tell you how many men, how many women, and that sort of thing. But this study didn't, so you don't have to tell me that. With classification of basically stage B heart failure. with well-being over the previous week. Let's see. So that's the, all this other stuff we don't really worry about. Basically, this is pretty specific to this research, but we want to know that this is the sample. We had 186 men and women with heart failure. Next question is, do you think the research was important? Why or why not? And once again, I'm asking for your opinion. If you think it's important, tell me why and explain to me why. If you think it's not important and it's dumb, well, say, I don't like it, I think it's dumb, and this is why. And you give me specific reasons why. And then it's, what were the main findings of the study? It says, you see the discussion to find this out. Were the findings of the study what was expected by the researchers, stated by the introduction and hypothesis? You look at that, you can get an idea. If the findings were different than they expected, explain what was different. So in some of these papers, somebody might find out that, wow, my hypothesis was not supported. It didn't happen how I expected it to, but I got interesting results and learned some other stuff. So that's what you're basically looking for there. Did it support the ideas of the original ideas of the researchers or not? And then the last one, in your opinion, what was the most interesting part of the paper? And that's just, once again, that's just your opinion. You're going to tell me what you thought was most interesting about it. And you're going to select the paper yourself from a list that we have on the Canvas site. Okay, that's about it. Let me show you, let me try a different screen share here real quick. Stop share, let me get a different screen share. Where is all my papers? Oh, they're not opened, darn. Let's go to Canvas site then. All right, so here we're just gonna go to a Canvas class, and let me go to modules. And is this the right class? Yeah, so nope, let's see. There's a lot of videos in here, and a lot of these videos were on my other computer, so I'm gonna post this up on YouTube, even though it's specific to our class, because I do not have the other videos that we need, so I'm gonna have to start making them. So sorry, you guys are in for more of this. This is the module that will be opened up a little bit later. It's peer-reviewed research paper activity, which is what this is, a guided research activity. I'm showing you where to find this stuff so that you can fill out the guided research paper activity. You can go through, fill out that 1 through 9 questions, put it on the assignment on Canvas. And then your paper stuff will be here too. To write your paper, you're just going to select one of these papers. And these are the ones that we've got, that I picked for you guys this time. So you can go through and look at them all and see what's interesting to you. And you can select that paper and select that journal article and do your paper on it. Okay. All right. I guess I'm going to wrap it up. I hope this covered everything I wanted to. I was kind of all over the place, had a lot of distractions, but I think this video will hopefully be better than nothing. So good luck. If you have questions at all, please shoot me an email or contact me through Canvas, and we can have a one-on-one if you're having any problems with this, and we can look at your paper and see what the problem is. Okay. All right. That is about it. So let me stop the recording here. All right, guys, take care. I'll see you in the next video.